Hello and welcome everyone to another edition of Developer Office Hours. I'm Ryan Fox. I'm your host. Every other week we do this, and we're thrilled to be joined today by Robert Zarembra and Radek Jindal and Amit Yadav of the Algo Builder team. And they're going to go through with us a quick introduction to what is Algo Builder, followed by a demonstration, and then we'll follow it up with some live Q&A. Robert, we're thrilled to have you here this morning, or at least for me. Introduce yourself, your team, tell us where in the world you are, and we look forward to seeing the demo for Algo Builder. Welcome.
With pleasure. Thank you, Ryan, for your introduction words. So yes, I'm Robert, based in Switzerland, and yes, we are the team behind Algo Builder. So I will be presenting. Right after me, Radek will do a demo of the one of the big features or templates we recently released. So I want to give a few moments to both Radek and Amit to say hello.
Hi everyone. Glad to be here. I'm working on Algo Builder with Robert Zarembra. Thank you.
Hello, I am Amit Yadav. I am developer at Algo Builder, and I will be supporting all the questions that you have. I will be answering those questions today. Thank you.
Great, thanks. So let me kick off. Yeah, let me quickly start describing what the Algo Builder. So it's a project management tool. Think about it as a truffle, but for Algorand. And it fills the gap in the Algorand developer ecosystem of having a dedicated tool, yes, which can manage our transactions, provide a declarative way for creating ASA, and then organize scripts, configuration files, managing the network configuration, transaction log, and checkpoints. So I was talking in the previous session about how this is done. I'm not going to go into details of that, but since many people here didn't hear about it, maybe I will do very quick information about it. So you have many tools how you can create an ASA. There is even a web tool, which will allow you in a few clicks to create an ASA. However, this is not this is not going to be saved anywhere else in the blockchain. So if you want to create a product around it, this is not the best way. This is good for demo, but not for long-standing products. So our goal here is to really have a tool for the product teams and organize the whole process and everything related to Algorand in a simple and manageable way. So the way how we declare ASA is, maybe I can even show the screen. So the ASA is declared using a syntax, which is in fact driven by the Algorand ASA object. Here you define what you need. Later on, some specific addresses, like for manager, reserve, freeze, clawback, can be updated when deploying the transaction. So deploying an ASA is as simple as saying that I want to deploy gold in this case, or I want to deploy gold and Tesla. And in the deployment transaction, you can just say that use different manager address than the one which is set here. Maybe what's also worth to point here is that within the tool, there is a set of predefined accounts, which are connected to the integrated with private net we set up. And those accounts allow to reproducible, let's say, private net builds and share the same configuration in the project between different users. We found it very, very useful because now all of a sudden, people can use the same, in the project, the same configuration and build the application. So maybe a quick show how the config is done then. Oh, so this is in our example. Yes, we have a one general config for all our examples. like in the truffle, is you define the network, which is done here. And then you can define multiple networks. So let's say like a default network. You can have production network, staging network, I don't know, like a private network inside the inside your company, and then use it when running the scripts. However, yes, the useful part here is this accounts. So the account can be declared here directly. So using the address and mnemonic, you can use the bytes, the private key bytes, to provide them on the account. But let's say if you use account which will not sign any transaction, the mnemonic or the private key bytes are optional, and you can just use the name and the address. Another way, yes, how these accounts can be integrated is using the key management daemon, the KMD, and we have like the whole guide about it, how this works, and how to provide this configuration in our guide. I will show it later during the presentation. Maybe what's very useful here is that you can have a different set of accounts for different networks. So let's say for staging and testing, yes, you can have one set of accounts, and then for production deployment, you may use the KMD daemon where the private keys won't be exposed. For more details, I would invite you to see the first session of our Algo office hour. And now let's go back to the presentation. So it doesn't not only, I mean, it's not only about defining the transactions and declaring the ASA. The biggest advancement in past month is the testing framework. So in February, we show the first version, the beta version of our testing framework. Later in March, we made the full Teal version 2 integration. So now you can test anything, and like all transactions are supported in our testing framework, and you can run, let's say, the same scripts as you would run with Algorand node inside our testing environment. So on top of that, we have many helper methods, which I will also show. In last session, we presented how you can use the Algo Builder to reduce 500 lines of code in JavaScript to deploy an ASA to 12 lines of code. So again, I really invite you to see the first session. And we are promoting also Algo Builder as a go-to place for a well-integrated tests and templates. So the mission of Algo Builder is to provide high efficient, trustworthy framework for Algorand dapps. The goal is to make the development and shipping Algorand application simple, efficient, and scalable. So hope that you will go on board on that mission and use Algo Builder and share the feedback. So this will really become useful. So 1.0 release. That's the newest big thing. The 1.0 release was done last week. That's a result of 2 milestones the Algo Builder project went through in past months. So you can see a new website, extended API documentation, infrastructure, and support to a Docker sandbox version 2. Maybe let me give you a quick session about like overview what's there. So that's the new website. If you go to the project page, the GitHub page, right, it's here. You will see the website link here, as well down in the documentation. So the whole tool is built in Node. So Node 12 is required for anything related to PyTeal. You need relevant Python version, and we develop everything with Yarn. So yeah, so PyTeal integration was also presented in the previous office hour. let's go to the website, because like in the website, we have the user guide. This is where you should start. And the user guide, as I mentioned before, okay, there is this configuration, that's the center of every project. And when you start the project, this is what you should read first. Yes, how to configure the project. Credentials, this is the section about how we can connect to a node. If you want to use KMD and import the accounts, that's how it works as well. And here we have the examples of the carrying the accounts we will use in the scripts. So as I mentioned, yes, we can use the mnemonic, we can use the private keybinds directly, we can import them from the file, or use the KMD here, using the KMD config. Next thing you should definitely check, yes, is the private network configuration and creation. With Algo Builder, you can create a private network in one command. Currently, this is done with a make, so it requires make, but for the sandbox related setups, you just need Docker Compose.
Robert, I just got a quick question. Before you go much further, is there any way you can spend a little time on the setup, on how you get going with this? Because we had some questions on that. Thank you.
Right.
Thanks. Sorry to interrupt.
Sure. So let's go here. So the guide is here in general, and all the documentation is rendered from guide docs. So if you use the master, which we in fact recommend, then this is when is the latest version of it. And here's our guide. So installation. So the recommended way to install the Algo Builder is from the repository, and then just call yarn install. It will install all the. So by the way, the repository is a mono repository. There are a few set packages, and everything is installed and built using these two commands. You don't need anything than a yarn and a node. You will download the dependencies and configure everything. If you want to use the global configuration, like the global setup, you can just install it using the yarn global and npm install. But then, yes, you will be always with the release. And there are a few things which are coming up very quickly. Yeah, we usually recommend just to use the master because it's stable, and we have almost 1,000 unit tests and integration tests. So the last command, the link here, is it provides a way to link the build into your system shell and the path. So it will copy so it will create a link to the algo command, script, into your npm binary home or yarn binary home. So yes, you need to make sure that then if you want to use it, I mean, that's in any case, if you use yarn global or if you use npm install g, yes, you need to have your the path when the things are installed in your path environment variable. If you're not sure what is this, you need to run this command. Then, of course, yes, you need to have Algorand node if you want to use the private node directly, but otherwise we have the Dropbox integration. So how does it work? It's in our infrastructure directory. So maybe let me show it here. So this is like everything you need to do to install the builder, the tool. That's like using the master. That's using the global setup. If you want to use PyTil, which in fact in most of the examples we do, yes, you need to have pipeenv as well, and then we have pipeenv. So pipeenv is it's something like what's yarn or npm but for Python. It will make sure that you have good Python version installed in your system. It will create for you a virtual environment for the Python. So it's like a local package, sort of like local project, and install all dependencies and check into to that environment. So Sync will do the whole setup. Shell, when you do pipe and shell, it will check into the environment, making sure that you are in the virtual environment. Yes. So that another way, if you are in the old fashioned pipe camp and you don't want to use the pipe, and you can still like install it and the pipe. You can still install PyTeal somewhere in your system and then use it. Yes. So in the infrastructure. So if you want to use the private network, the Algo Builder provides a way how you can very quickly create a private network and just run the examples out of the box. So here you have the quick start. You just go to the infrastructure directory and follow it. Like the only requirement is to use make. If you don't have make, you can use Dropbox, the Docker directly. And the best way is basically to open the make file and see what's in the make file. So the sandbox app will do the Docker compose. Okay, like this creates the Docker compose and creates everything. But yeah, basically you need to run Docker compose app, and it will create the sandbox for you. All right. Timekeeping. So I don't want to spend much time with like the setups. Most of that things were discussed in the previous office hour. I really want to show you like what's new, what's latest. So going to the version 1.0 release, yeah, we decided to call it 1.0 because it's huge. It's like a lot of great things. So I showed you already the our website. Yeah, so here's our guide. Like instead of reading the markdown files or reading them from the GitHub, here is nicely rendered. It's the same content. Then we have API. The API was already there. However, now we make it like well integrated with all the rest. So there are two main packages distributed with Algo Builder. The one is Algo B API, and the second one is runtime. The runtime is used for in the test framework. So in the scripts and like whatever you do in Algo B, you usually use this Algo B API. If you go and run tests, you want to have some structures and some methods from the runtime, because they need to integrate with the runtime. By the way, runtime is our implementation of Algorand runtime, but in JavaScript. So this makes the executing the transaction super fast. Recently, we were doing a test of creating 1,000 transactions, if I'm not mistaken, and we wanted to check it. We were doing like a cross check between Algorand and our runtime. And of course, in Algorand, executing 1,000 transactions, it will take 4,000 seconds. That's if you do it sequentially. Here, doing it sequentially in the runtime, yes, it's a matter of seconds. So that makes testing really efficient and pleasant. Imagine that if you have 50 tests and creating this test, cleaning the environment, and one single test will take you half a minute or something in the orders of dozens of seconds, then having this 50 tests, yes, it's not friendly anymore. With runtime, yes, you can do really unit tests, you can do CI, and it's very nice. So we were talking also about the test, how the test works in the previous developer hour. Now you have the nice API here. Let me show it to you. So there are a few three major objects when creating tests. So it's a runtime, interpreter, and account store. In our testing guide, what is that? Still, yes, you have the whole guide how to start and how to make a test. So we have like a whole tutorial here, how to start doing it. Just go there and follow the tutorial. However, maybe just to give you a heads up about the structure and about things which might be useful, you really want to use these two things, account store, which will define an account and what's stored in the account. You use it, it's very important, you use it for the assertions. So after the executing a transaction or some state changes, at the end of this, you want to validate that everything is correct, that the state changes were doing what's expected. So how you do it, you basically introspect the account store. Sometimes the links are bad here, sorry. So use these links here or use the search button. So the account store, yes, you have the account. So by the way, like each account store object will represent one single account. It will tell you like, okay, what's the account number, what's the balance, what are the ASA we opt in, what are the applications we opt in. So basically anything which is an Algorand is here as well. So another thing is the interpreter. Interpreter allows you to execute the kill code. So you use it to execute the kill code. Under the hood, it will parse the kill and connected with runtime, it will execute the state changes. We have the whole new tutorial. So last week it was finally released about the stateful smart contract in Algo Builder. This week the part 4 about testing will be released. That tutorial the testing tutorial follows what we have in our guide here. So if you can't wait for the release of the article, yes, you can start and go ahead here. All right. So maybe last thing, if you want to search something what is in the scripts or in the examples and wants to see what's the API or see the documentation about an entity, just use search button. Like, this is really the best way to use it. So let's say exec transaction, and then you see like what you need to provide to execute the transaction. Okay. So the sandbox I explained is it's integrated, so you can use either a Docker or standalone Algorand installation for the for running the scripts. Again, in the first developer hour session, we were doing a demo how to create a project, how to connect it, and how to verify like which network we are using. So I'm not going to repeat it here. Later on, Rafik will present like the advanced project of the permissioned token. So how the thing is organized here. So when you create an AlgoB project, it's really as simple as, let's say, AlgoB init. Okay, let's just create a new directory. Oops. Yes. And it will install all the dependencies for like, creating any project. And here you have like a few commands which might be helpful to start with. Again, most of the things were presented in the first session. The components which are there, like here, if you look at it, right, we have assets, we have scripts, tests, are presented here. So in the script, we define how we want to interact with the blockchain. ASA will provide you the declarative way of what's the ASA. Checkpoints will store like all the transaction log, and information about our deployments. Algo Builder, this is the tool which will use all this layer. It connects with the runtime to provide a testing framework. And something new, we have a dapp templates, which I will show in a second. Here, so this is something new we started. We are really calling for the developers to go and make pull requests to deploy some templates here. So this is something what in a truffle they call it boxes. Instead of like having a smart contract here are the full dapps, which usually are web applications. The one we have now here are React-based applications, and they have a full integration with the Algo Builder, the configuration there, the Algo signer, the wallet, allows you to sign the transactions from the web app using the Algo signer and then redirect it to the node. So for the moment, we have only two. Here is the documentation, how you can set up the thing. So this is something we are going to heavily work on. And yes, it's part of the 1.0 release. So what's next? The runtime for the Till version 3, expected in the next month. Rich language integration. So we have a PyTil, which will be integrated as well. Integration with Indexer to observe payments, more advanced smart contracts and templates and solutions. So the DAO contract. So in other blockchains, there is a lot about like how to organize teams and projects, and DAO contract is something super useful. And there is no, let's say, single template for creating a DAO in Algorand. So this is something what we want to deliver. Bond token with periodic payouts that's related to the permission contract. So imagine that, okay, you have a token which will yield some payouts. Like the design of it is not very obvious. However, we see that if Algorand is going to be used as go-to system for securities, NFTs, this might be super useful. Unique NFT ASA implementation. That's another request which was discussed on the Algorand forum. So go ahead there to see the discussion there. And the license token. So imagine that you have a product and you want to give an access to the product using a license token, or in fact other way around. Imagine that you sell the license and someone else wants to use an asset, and you as a licensor, you expect some commission from the viewers of the assets being used. So that's the thing, like the whole thing is exploring for the next milestone. Also on the dapp templates, so the web apps, the templates we have now is just the first step, and of course we want to add more things. So the deployer mode in Algo Builder, we have two modes to deploy to interact with the projects, the deployment mode and run mode. Now we need a web mode to have a better integration with the project. A widget to make the purchases using the Algo signer, dapp which will process ASA payments to deliver a service. That will require an indexer integration. Again, something super useful to explore. And finally, proof of concept for template with full Web3. And as Web3, as we think about it, okay, there is storage, let's say IPFS, there is an identity, and there are smart contracts, and we want to see like how Ceramic can be used to have that template. Okay, finally, the permission token. That's a highlight of, I wanted to be as a highlight of this presentation. Ratik will do a demo. A few months ago, Jason was presenting what's called a restricted token. We extended that idea and created a whole template of creating a token which will guard different mechanisms which are required for the securities. So securities usually are financial instruments such as stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, derivatives, hedge funds, but also, like, depending on the country and jurisdiction, yes, that could be commodity assets. So we need that construction if we want to have a blockchain-based security token. We generalize the idea and we call it a permission token because securities is in fact a subset of the permission token, and we create a template where such a token can be created. So the basic setup includes the ASA. So token is an ASA. It's not an app by itself. It must have a callback, logic signature, controller smart contract, and set of permission contracts. The whole documentation, go here. Here. The code and the whole documentation about it is available here in our examples and permission token. So yeah, read through it. Amit will do a demo in a minute. And here we describe like all the methods which are implemented. Maybe I will like very quickly go through it. Yeah, so what's needed is a transfer, is the issuance, opting into account, opting out to the account, killing, so like stopping like the whole transfers from all the users. After that, after the token is killed, user, the only thing he can do is opting out, hence like releasing the minimum algo deposit he needs to have his account. Force transfer, so this is useful when for some regulatory reasons we need to seize someone else's tokens. Yeah, unfortunately, like the financial world is not as decentralized as, let's say, ideal blockchain tokens. So this is needed. Also update reserve by asset configuration. So here we like describe the template how this can be done. So issuance and seizing is done by the reserve account, as a reserve account. Sometimes we need to update the reserve account. There are multiple ways how we can do it. One is we recommend, yes, that the reserve account is a multisig. So one is like creating a new multisig and then using it to transfer the tokens from the previous one to the new one and update the ASA configuration. Another one is doing rekeying. So that's described here. And finally, there is a set of permission functions. So for the template we implemented too, it's a whitelist. So we can whitelist a user. And the second thing is to change the permission manager. So permission manager is the one responsible for setting the permissions of different users, like whitelisting or, let's say, setting a different level of a user, or whatever the permission rule is written as. In our example, in our template, this is done by a permission manager. The template, yes, can be expanded or extended in any way you want. Okay, so this is the base, and we hope that this will be used in many real-world use cases. The design about the security token is described here in our link. So follow this link here, and here we have like the specification of the template. What does it mean? Yes, to be a security and a permission. Yes, what high-level functions we require here, and the solution. So with that, I would like to pass to Rafik, who will do a demo of the permission token.
Thank you. Like Robert explained, in this example, we implement an algo example using permission token. So in this scenario, we have a token which is an Algorand standard asset, and its name is gold, and its definition is an asset.yaml file. So it's about here. So in this file, we have the definition, and for the config, we set the creator, the asset creator, manager, reserve to be a single account, which we call Alice. So Alice is a single account whose config is present in the algob config file. So you can pass all accounts in these files, and I'll share the file later. And in this example, we will use some non-reserve accounts which we want to transfer tokens as Bob, Elon, and John. Okay. So now for this security token, we want a few rules to be followed, right? So the rules which you define in these examples are that the sender and receiver should be whitelisted. So basically, if the two accounts are not whitelisted, then the transfer is rejected. And also the receiver balance should not be greater than 100 tokens. No one can hold more than 100 tokens. So in the config, I think Robert explained it. We have YAML file, we have a controller smart contract, we have permission. So permission has the rules. And since we want the token to be secure, we create the asset as default frozen, and we only allow clawback to execute all the transactions. So clawback is a stateless smart contract which just rejects or approves a transaction. It ensures that the controller is called, and controller smart contracts, the controller contract, it has the permissions. So it keeps the permissions and ensures that rules are followed. Okay, just a quick overview. So in this demo, first we'll doing the setup. We will deploying the ASA. So this is the order. We first deploy the ASA. It will be default frozen. If you don't want the ASA to be default frozen, then you can freeze it later and lock the freeze account, which you wish. Then we will deploy the controller. Controller ensures that the permissions or the contract in which we will be adding these two rules, it is called. Then we will deploy the clawback, the stateless contract, and we basically modify the asset clawback to this contract address. Now clawback ensures that the controller is called. So this should be controller. And then we deploy the permissions. So permission, this is the rule smart contract. It ensures that the rules are followed, and we set this config to the controller. So controller is the main contract. It essentially controls the asset. Okay. While execution, we will be issuing few tokens. We will be then whitelisting accounts so that we can transfer the assets, and then we will try to transfer few tokens between Bob and John, between these two accounts. Okay. So first I have these three scripts: setup, token, controller. So, like I just went, we will quickly deploy these using algo deploy command. Okay. So I needed to clear the checkpoints. So first I'm deploying the asset. Its name is gold in the asset.yaml file. Then I deploy the controller, this file. In the example, you can find all the scripts and their implementation using algo functions. Then after controller is deployed, we update the asset clawback. We deploy the clawback. This is the contract address of the clawback, this one. And then we update the asset clawback to escrow. Then we deploy the permissions. So we pass some templates parameters as the permissions manager, the token ID. So the clawback has token ID and controller app ID hard-coded in this contract. So with Algo B, you can just simply write this in Python and pass these as a template parameter in this function using this. Okay. Now, after we have deployed the token, first we'll try to issue few tokens. So these are the execution scripts. So first, I'll just quickly go over through the script. In this file, we will try to issue few tokens to Elon, this account. We will try to issue 15 tokens to Elon, and the transaction group looks like this. There's a call to controller, and there's a call to the clawback. So this will actually approve or reject the transaction, the escrow account. So first we fund account, then we opt in for Elon, which will receive the asset. Then after opting in, I issue 15 tokens to this address. This is the Elon address. Okay, and the params are correct, so it passes. This is the Elon asset holding, and you can see here the supply is 15 now, as I just minted 15 tokens to Elon. So this was issuing. Then we'll go through whitelisting. So basically, the rules ensure that if an account is whitelisted, then it can receive tokens or send tokens. So so to quickly go over through the script, first we fund accounts, then I opt in to the permissions. So permissions contract will whitelist. Then there is a function to whitelist. It's just a simple call to the permission, and only permissions manager can whitelist an account. This can also be changed, like Robert was explaining in the API reference. So first I fund accounts, then I opt in, and then I whitelist. Now there is also a failing scenario as well. Since the permissions manager is set to Alice, so if I try to add a permissions using an account other than Alice, then it will fail. So this is the failing scenario. So basically here you can see the first transaction passed, and I added this account to whitelist, and the last one, this one failed. The transaction was rejected. Then we will go through the main file, which is now after issuing and whitelisting, I'll try to transfer few tokens. Okay, so to quickly go over through this script, same, first I fund those accounts, then I opt in. And so in this script, I will try to transfer few tokens from Bob to John. Okay, so in order to do that, first I'll have to whitelist these accounts. Here I whitelist these accounts. So if transfer, so here first I fund accounts, then I will whitelist these accounts. So I funded these accounts, and then I did the opt-in. Before whitelisting, I need to opt in, and then I whitelist the two accounts. Currently it is whitelisting these accounts. Then before receiving tokens, I'll opt in. You can skip this code if you already have previously opted in and whitelisted. It's just a demonstration. Then after whitelisting, I will issue 300 tokens, which will increase the total supply to 315 as I issued 300 tokens. This is the holdings. And then I'll try to transfer 15 tokens from Bob to John. Now this will pass because Bob and John are whitelisted, and the amount is also good. It's 15. So this transaction passes, and I see that it has increased. Its asset holding has been equal to 15. Now the next one fails because Now I try to transfer 90 tokens, and the balance will become 105 because I previously transferred 15, so it will fail. And this one will also fail because Elon is not whitelisted. But in this scenario, it passes because I just showed you during whitelist, we just whitelisted Elon. So this one passed. So this will also fail. And there are a few other scripts as well, but we won't be going through this in the demo. You can find all the scripts in the permission token example. And this is the basic example which Jason was previously referring to.
We presented the permission token. Here I want to give you a little bit more what's the vision and how the things work. So here is our user, let's call it Bob, and he wants to trade some securities. So let's say Tesla shares or a gold. In many countries, tokenized, fully backed token of gold, yes, might be seen as security. So normally how it works in our template is that we need to have two permissioned contracts. So here, let's say organization 1 may manage KYC for users. Organization 2 may manage AML, anti-money laundering, or some payment processing or scoring. So there can be many of them, and this part here, yes, will represent the permission tokens, and those will be managed by different organizations. Here, yes, for the Tesla, so the Tesla permission token will need to integrate the Tesla clawback for executing the transfers, controller, the controller to making sure that permissions are checked, and in organization 2, yes, which is managing the gold, yes, we need to have again controller and the clawback. However, what's interesting, we want that, or we want to enable that this controller can reuse the same smart contract for KYC and AML. So it's interesting to see, yes, that these two things can be really like composable, the permission, and the gold organization, yes, can define like which organizations or which permissions they want to use. Imagine they have like a third one permission contract here, which will be managed by themselves, for example. Let's say a whitelist, like the gold whitelist. And Tesla may have like their own restriction here. Yes, like another smart contract. So a user, from his perspective, he only needs to opt in to the asset he wants to interact with, and the permission organizations, so the permission applications, yes, which will certify the user. And then the controller will do the check using the permission application if a user is compliant for doing a transfer. So let's say that the KYC will store for the user, for Bob, that he is based in US and his yearly income is above 50,000. The gold asset, the gold organization may say that, okay, yes, anyone with that who has these parameters, like whose identity, yes, meets these parameters, yes, will be able to hold gold. However, Tesla, even though the company in the US may decide that, okay, for some reason, from now on, they may not accept people from US or China, let's say, for a different example. So they will still use the same KYC, but the controller will define the rules, yes, based on the permissioned smart contracts. So yes, with that note, I would like to close.
Thank you, Robert, very much for the presentation. We're thrilled to learn more about Algo Builder and see the demonstrations here. So thank you guys very much.